Now this is not the neatest Hebrew that I've ever written, but this is Genesis 1:1. And what this says is Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim va'et haaretz. Some of this is what you'd expect it to be, but there's a couple things that we can notice from the Hebrew text that teach us something about God that maybe we didn't quite expect. Let me start with the simple stuff first. The first word is in the beginning, Bereshit. In Hebrew, that is one word. That gives us the time frame. The next word, I'm trying to look at this upside down. Okay, the next word is bara, which we translate as created. In Hebrew, they don't have a problem with putting the verb first and then the subject noun second. And part of the reason why they don't have a problem with that is because they have these words right here that mean direct object comes next. So you don't get your direct objects confused with your subject nouns or confused with your objects of the preposition. You don't get the noun that goes in the preposition mixed up because they take the preposition itself and they actually stick it on the front of the noun that's going to be the object of the preposition. So in English, this would be a phrase, in the beginning. In Hebrew, it's one word. All right. When we're talking about the heavens, ha-shamayim, the ha means the, shamayim means heavens. If I had the vowel pointing here, it would be apparent that it's actually a dual plural. That is, there's two heavens, like the sky where the birds live and the air is, and then outer space where the stars are and there's no air. So you need an astronaut suit and an oxygen tank and all that. This word right here that goes in front of the heavens is a word that means direct object comes next. So it means the very next word is a noun and it is the direct object. It receives the action of your action verb, which in this case is created. Same thing down here. We have that same direct object comes next word. Fancy word for that is nota accusativi. So if you want to, memorize that. But all it really means is the next word that follows this is a direct object. This little vav here means and. So it's direct object comes next, the heavens, and direct object comes next, the, same ha means the, earth, aretz. Okay, so that part makes sense. But here's where we see the beginnings of how unique Christianity is. And that is, if we look at this verb here, there's several things we can learn about a verb in Hebrew just by looking at how it's spelled. We can learn whether it is singular or plural, whether it's first, second, or third person, whether it is, singular, plural, first, second, third person, masculine or feminine. We can also tell whether the verb is one that indicates completed action or not yet completed action. And we can tell whether it is a simple action or an intensive action or a causative action. All of that, we can learn every bit of that just by looking at this one word right here. Okay, so in other words, let's think about what that means we can learn about the person who did the creating of the heavens and the earth in the beginning. We can learn whether, first of all, do you think this is a first, second, or third person verb? First person is what means the writer or the speaker is doing the talking and they're talking about themselves or themselves. All right, so that would be like I or we. Okay, then if you're talking to the audience, you would say you or y'all or you guys. Or if it's singular in Old English, you would say thee, thy, or thine. So in the King James Bible, if you see thee, thy, or thine, you know it's singular. But if you see you, ye, or yourselves, you know it's plural. That's second person. Then if we're talking about someone who is not the writer or the speaker, that's first person, or the immediate audience who is listening or reading, that's second person. We're talking about somebody beyond those two, that would be what we call the third person. If the third person is a guy, we say he. If it is a female, we say her or she. And then if it's more than one, we would say they or them. Okay? So, for the word created here, that is in Genesis 1:1, would that be first, second, or third person? It'd be third person. And would that third person be masculine or feminine? masculine. And would that person be singular or plural? Singular. So that means we have he. He is the word. He is the word, the pronoun that we use in English to designate third person, masculine, singular. So in other words, this verb right here, built into the verb itself, is our pronoun he. So you could, if you didn't have this word Elohim here for God, if all we had was Bereshit bara et hashemayim va'et haaretz, we would translate that in the beginning, he created the heavens and the earth. But there is a little bit more we can learn about the creating that went on there. One of them is that in Hebrew you have either a completed action or a not yet completed action. They call that the imperfect and the perfect. Well, which do you think the word created is here in the first verse of God's book? Is it completed action or not yet completed action? It is completed action. Doesn't sound like evolution, does it? Sounds like he did it and it was done. This is a done deal kind of creation. All right? It is a perfect verb. The other thing that we notice from Hebrew has active verbs, passive verbs, or they have something called a hithpael, which is both active and passive at the same time. Do you think that the action going on by this creator who is making the heavens and the earth, would you say that that is active action or passive action or both at the same time? It is active. In other words, God is acting as he is doing this action of creating the heavens and the earth. Okay, one more little piece of information we get from that verb, and that is in Hebrew, verbs are either simple action, or they are intensive action, or they are causative action. Now let me illustrate. Let me start with the word killed. If somebody accidentally runs over a toddler when they're backing up in a parking lot, we would say the poor driver killed the child. All right, that's said. Okay, but if a murder took place in that same parking lot, we would use an intensive verb, which means an intensive killing took place. There was hate involved, there was deliberation involved, there was violence involved. So we'd use an intensive verb to describe that. It was a really serious killing as opposed to an accidental killing. All right, but what if we were to try to describe the way that King David killed Bathsheba's husband, Uriah the Hittite? Was he the one who actually killed Uriah on the battlefield? Did David actually use a weapon to kill Uriah? No. But is he responsible for killing Uriah so that he could have Uriah's wife? Yes. So we would use a causative verb for that. We would say, David caused to be killed Uriah the Hittite. Okay, so that gives you an idea of active verbs, intensive verbs, or causative verbs. Now, which do you think the word created is? And Pastor, you don't tell me the answer on this. All right. Okay. Which of those three choices do you think the verb created is in Genesis 1:1? Is it a simple verb, or an intensive verb, or a causative verb? Okay. Well, if it was intensive, that means that God intensively created. If he just kind of caused things to be set in motion that eventually created everything, we'd use a causative. But actually, it's a simple. Now think about that for a while. Chew on that. Creating the heavens and the earth, these huge galaxies of gazillions and gazillions of stars that as far as our technology can see, they're out there and they're in numbers that we can't comprehend. Or taking our microscopes, our light microscopes, and looking at cells, like frog cells, like what I've seen in years past. Or even using electron microscopes, like a scanning electron microscope, to look at follicle cells on a frog egg cell. Or using something that gets even smaller than that, a transmission electron microscope that actually you'd slice through a piece of egg cell. The reason why I picked that out is that's what I did when I used an electron microscope. That's all they let us work on. Anyway, you see mitochondria and endoplasmic reticulum, these little teeny organelles that are inside a cell. They're not even as big as a cell. And the electron beams are being used to give you a picture of this. The smallness of the detail of everything that God has made, all of that he made, and of course ourselves as the crown of creation that he chose to favor us in that way. All of that creation, God said, simple. When he created it, to him, it was a simple act. It wasn't even intensive. It was just simple. Now that's the kind of God that the first verse of the Bible indicates. And so that he created, that word he created, he did it and it was completed. And it was a simple act for him. And then the person who did it is named Elohim. That's obviously a noun that identifies the name that he's given. Would that be a singular, a dual plural, or a regular plural? What would it be? Well, in English, we make sure that our nouns match our verbs, right? We say, he sits on a chair, or they sit on chairs. We don't say, he sits on a chair, or they sit on a chair. We try to make sure that our verbs and our nouns match up. So what would it be, this name Elohim that is given for the Creator? Would that be singular, dual plural, or regular plural? You would expect singular, but you would expect wrong. It's a regular plural, not a dual. So whoever this Creator is not one because it's not a singular noun. Is not two because it's not a dual plural. Whoever this Creator is three or more. Now you can't tell just from the first sentence whether it's 3 or 5 or 1,000. But one thing you do know, just from that first sentence in the Bible, is that this Creator God is not one, is not two, but is at least 3. And yet, this Creator, who is at least 3, is so much one being that the only proper verb to use for this Creator is a singular verb. Plural and yet one at the same time. And that's just the introductory verse. That's how different Christianity is.